Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man, and joining me today is Sarina Baptista. And we have a rather unusual occurrence today. I'm actually getting a phone call during my introduction, which I don't usually get. And Sarina, I think I'm going to go ahead and take this one because I just got a hunch that you'd probably want me to. Okay, now, caller, you're on the air. Well, now it's ringing. That's unusual.
Hello?
Hello, this is Royce, the Redneck Radio Man at Paranormal Palace Radio. I think you were just calling my show, and it evidently, I think it disconnected before I got to you to answer it, and then what it done was it just redialed you.
Oh, yeah, I did. I thought, because I know one of the persons who's on, she emailed me, Sarina? Right,
that's my guest today.
Yeah, so I thought it's starting at 2 o'clock Eastern Time.
Oh, no, that's, it's 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. I'm not,
2 o'clock Eastern.
Well, okay, Eastern is kind of strange. It depends really on how far east you are, because like Tennessee, or I think it's Florida is 1 hour ahead of us, and I think it's Tennessee is 2 hours ahead of us, so it depends exactly where at in the east you are in relation to me.
Oh, I'm in New York. Is it on now or no?
Yes, it is on right now.
Oh, it is on right now.
Yeah, you're live on the air with me and her as we speak.
Oh, okay, because I was trying to get on the computer, but I'm on the screen, but it wouldn't let me go in as a guest or anything. So, is there any way for me to listen, or what time are you finishing, or are you finished?
No, we're not finished. We're just now starting, in fact. And
okay.
You don't see the player on the web page?
Yeah, but all it has is an X in the middle. That's it. And it's not.
That's because you need a plug-in. It's a Windows Media Player, and it requires ActiveX to be installed or enabled.
Oh, that's why.
And are you using Internet Explorer?
Yeah, I think it's on the, well, whatever. Yeah, it was, but, yeah, right now it doesn't have the icon. It had before to install, but now I didn't know that I have to install something. Okay, I don't know. What?
But what is your name?
I'm sorry?
She asked what your name was.
I don't hear what you're saying.
This is Sarina. What is your name?
Oh, hi, I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
This is Sarah you wrote about in your book?
What?
Is this David, Sarah?
Yes, it's David, Sarah.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, well, I think it was 2 o'clock our time, because I thought it was like, I don't know, I always forget if it's 2 or 3 hours ahead, but anyways, I can't seem to really get on to hear it without being on the phone with you, so, I guess, no, I don't see anything here that allows me to, even to go on as a guest, so, all right, so I'll just leave it, that's all, and
okay, well, Sarah?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but before you get out of here, I was going to say, if you're using Internet Explorer, if you refresh your page, a pop-up menu ought to show up that asks you if you want to enable ActiveX, and if you enable it, you should see the player and the arrow on it.
Yeah, I know it did before, but now I don't see it. Okay, I'll see what happens if I try it again.
You can also try it in other browsers, and some of them will give you a dialogue asking you if you want to download it and install it, and sometimes for some people it's easier that way.
Yeah, I didn't download it before, and now it's gone. It doesn't ask me anymore. So, because I didn't really know what it was, I didn't realize you have to have that. Okay, well, I'll see what I can do. Thank you anyways.
Okay, then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Sarah. Bye, Sarah.
Well, that is one of the things about doing a live radio show on the Internet is sometimes technology's just not as, cut and dry for everybody as you'd like it to be.
Yes, absolutely.
So I hope that she manages to get this here ActiveX, enabled and up and running so she can get in. Didn't get a chance to tell her that she has to have a free membership to get into the chat room, though.
Well, yeah, and her son is actually one of my angels in the book, and I met her online in one of the online support groups for grieving parents, and so it's just wonderful to have those people really wanting to connect with their children, and that's what the book is about.
Right, and in fact, I took a bunch of questions, to be honest with you, while I was reading it, that I have serious doubts we're going to have time to get to today. But I was going to say it's either September or October is when my next opening is. I know that's a ways down the road, but I stayed booked a couple, 3 months in advance. I was going to say we're not able to cover everything today. If you feel like coming back, we can always reschedule the rest of it, and that way I have a chance to finish reading the book and get more questions.
That would be great. That would be awesome.
And
my main thing is, of course, the A Bridge to Healing JT story is about, my journey when JT, my 7-year-old son, left. He passed from the flu, as you know from reading the book.
Right.
And it just threw us into the whole family into this whole other world. And I've met so many beautiful people in that world who are suffering,
yes.
The loss of their children as well. And so I wanted to write kind of as honoring them and the whole process of grieving. But then as I got more into my process, and it was only about 4 months, when I realized that JT was still so close to us, so present in the house, I couldn't believe it. And through twists and turns and different things that he led me to, I found that I could communicate with him and others. And that's the back part of the book is how I discovered my gifts, being a psychic medium, and now I train psychic mediums and those who want to connect with their children and loved ones. And then the back of the book is the training section where I put in exercises and things like that help people to get connected with their loved ones.
Right.
So I can't wait to hear your, I know you're partway through it, and can't wait to hear your feedback on that, since you've been in this industry for a while.
Well, yeah, and you're not the first medium that I have had on this, and there have been others who we've talked about part of your book that you got in there about the life between life thing where people, choose who their family member is going to be during this incarnation and, other things of that nature. So, not sure how many questions I did get on that one, but let's start this up at the beginning. And if I ask a question that seems a little rough, please overlook it, because I tried to pick some questions that I knew might be a little rough, but that I figured that people would be asking you anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, one of them, like the first one, is in the beginning of your book, you describe how at first you dismissed signs from your son after he passed over, only to later discover these signs were in fact him communicating with you. What would you say to those who would suggest your desire to be in touch with your son was just manifesting in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, truthfully, I thought that I was going crazy. As a bereaved mom, we want any parent who's lost a child, you want so much to know that child is okay, that I really did think I was making this up. I did not put in the book, my previous job before, I got married and had kids was a QA engineer. So I have a left brain process going on. And so when this stuff started, it was crazy. And I thought, there's no way that this could be him. But constantly, over and over and over, these things would happen, coincidences, and dragonflies actually landing on me and dancing in front of me, which I have in the book. It was to the point where I had to say, something's going on here. This is not a normal thing. This is not your everyday thing that's happening. And so basically it was repetition of these signs. And then you get a little bit more in tune with it, meaning you just observe. My awareness was heightened, and I was looking around, and I was looking at things very differently, and you do anyway when you've lost a child. Just nothing looks the same. And looking at different things. And So for those people who have received signs and they're going, oh, no, that couldn't possibly be my child, I would say watch for the repetition, because they work so hard. It was undeniable at the end of it. It was undeniable that it really was JT.
Okay. And, one of the things I would point out here to most people who may not have thought about it, because I've seen dragonflies before, is as a rule, they don't light on humans. They fly away from them. Yes,
they are. They're one of their things within the native Indian is swift flight from danger. They do not want to have anything to do with us humans. And so when they land on you, then you stop and you take notice and you're going, wow, this is not a normal event.
Okay. Now also for people who are listening but not directly at the site, say they're at Shoutcast or somewhere, I usually cover this at the beginning, but as I mentioned earlier, I got kind of a surprise phone call and didn't start out the way we usually do. So let me remind everybody now, if y'all got some questions, call in at 832-632-7904. Also, if you want to learn more about Sarina, you can go to her website, www.sarinabaptista.com. And I'm going to get a break in my questions real quick, because there's a question in the chat room. And this one here is actually from my wife, who happens to be listening. I knew she would, because I knew this was a favorite subject of hers.
Oh, great, good.
And she's asked, can you contact her Nana?
Yes. Well, I can basically, that energy is always there to connect. It's no matter who has passed, no matter what the time has been between, when they passed and now, that energy is always available. And I do go back to that everything is energy. Energy cannot be destroyed, right?
Exactly.
So everything goes, so that energy is somewhere. Her Nana is there. So what happens when she says, can you contact my Nana? Immediately that energy comes forward, and that energy is present with her. And I'll bet you, you can contact back that she can either, smell her, or there's some sense of her being with her right now, because her Nana is actually very strong. It's a very strong energy. So, whenever we say, I want to contact so-and-so, that immediately brings that energy to that person, and then I can connect with it.
Okay. Now, back to the questions I got over here. One of them was, and the next one is, has JT's contact with you helped you deal with the grief of his loss? And if so, can you please give us an example how?
Yes, tremendously. And there was still, in the beginning, when I found that I could connect with him, the biggest thing that he came in and said, he said, Mom, you still have to grieve, because we, as parents, are not supposed to bury our children, just plain and simple. Although it happens. As I did the research, 71,000 children die every year. That was astounding to me. That's just in the United States. So it happens. We need to grieve. Parents need to grieve. However, I got the benefit of knowing my son was okay and learning it wasn't an immediate thing. I could not converse with him immediately. I had to train to do that. Once I did, then it was when I would go into that grief, what we call grief bursts, where it's this uncontrollable thing of, wave of grief comes over you. He'd be right there, and I could feel him hugging me. And so knowing that, I would almost smile and know that he's right here with me, walking me through the process. So that is one of the biggest things that I want for anybody who's lost anybody, but specifically for those of us who've had to bury our children, is to get that connection so that they do feel their children or see them or hear them or however it is, so that they can walk through the grief process just a little bit, with just a little bit of an advantage. You still have to do it. There's no way around it, but there is that added knowing that your child is okay.
Okay, that sounds like it at least gives you enough of a boost to keep going when you might otherwise want to give up.
Absolutely.
And I was also going to ask you that I see in your book is geared toward helping people connect with lost loved ones. Have you seen successful results from people who have read your book?
It's a very new book, so the reviews that have come in have been very favorable. It is a process, so if somebody reads the book, they have begun the journey of connecting. It's not an instantaneous thing. It takes practice and it takes time. When I first learned that I was able to communicate with JT, again, I got into training, and it took me probably about five months of solid, really working it and practicing to have that the two-way conversation with him that I have now. But it took some time, so I would say for anybody who tries the exercises, don't just do it once. It is a daily practice, and you need to do these things daily. However, I would imagine that if you read it and open yourself up to it, that there would be some sign of success, let's say. I mean, their child is right there, their mother's right there, their father, whoever they're trying to connect with, they're right there, and they really want this connection, so they are really trying to help. So I do train people now, so I have had tremendous success in the training program, and that's what is written in the book is the training program that I have now. So I know that it will be successful. It's a matter of people practicing.
Okay. Now, also, I was just wondering, and you being an ex-Catholic, according to your book, I'm sure you would understand why I'd be curious about this, and me being an ex-Pentecostal, because I kind of left the church in favor of Hermetic teaching and spiritualism. But the question is, have you received any grief from parties who would say you're consulting familiar spirits? And what would you say to these people?
I have received some of that feedback. Most has been all right. Most of those people who were friends before JT left, who knew JT and then have walked with me through this, they understand I'm not crazy and I'm not consorting with the devil. However, people outside, if they hear I have been accused of devil worship and things like that, and I totally understand that. They're coming from a place where they believe that any kind of communication like this is the devil. And what I say to them is that I know this is coming from God, and God has spoken to me also. That energy of God, and whatever you call that energy, because many people call it different things. And I know enough about energy now that it puts it into a very different vernacular. It's not just that one energy that is guiding everything. It's collective energy that guides everything. And so for those people, of course, that's not really helpful to them because that is not in their belief system.
Right.
So I say to them, I understand why you feel the way that you do, but just open yourself up just a little bit and, give me the benefit of the doubt because this is real to me and it can be real for you. And, and then I let them just kind of go off and do what they need to do. I don't take offense to it at all because it's not about me. It's about their belief system and about possibly their fears of all of that. I know enough about how things work now that I know that it's all good. So it doesn't bother me anymore. It used to.
Well, I think it's great that you had a chance to be a Catholic before you got involved in this because you've had a chance to walk on both sides of the street, and now you're in a better position to narrate between the two.
Absolutely. And when JT left, we were actually attending a Christian church, and so I have that experience as well, which is a little different, obviously, than the Catholics. But it all depends on how you look at the world and what you look at for your truth. And I believe that there are many truths and not just one.
Yeah, and, truth is kind of a multifaceted thing, it seems to me in my experience.
Yes, exactly. It all depends on your reality and where you come from and what you hold as true, because what you hold as true will become your reality.
Well, yeah, it's not only that, but it's also the same fact that one truth manifests in many ways. I mean, a fire, it's true that if you stick your finger on a fire, it's going to burn you, but it's also true that same fire is going to cook for you. That same fire can start a forest fire. All of these are truths about this one thing, in other words.
Absolutely.
And
right,
one doesn't over-trump the other.
Precisely. That's a very good way what a great analogy. I like that. I'm going to use that.
I kind of come up with weird things sometimes.
No, but it's true. Absolutely.
But I was going to say, also, in your book, you tell us we all have this connection to the other side. What would you say to those who might have made contact with a lost loved one, but are not sure if they just imagined it?
Well, again, going back to, I thought I was going crazy, and the people around me too, they said, oh, well, whatever you need to do to get through the grief, honey, and I was totally there with them. I thought, oh, this is just crazy. So what I would say is, stop and listen. Stop and observe. If your loved one is really trying to get through to you, then you need to stop what you're doing and observe the world around you. Some of the signs that parents get are so subtle, and other people too. It could be just a song that pops up on the radio, and then you think of your loved one, and that absolutely is them saying hi. It could be, lots of us see, numbers repeated on the clock. That's 11:11. Your loved one is saying hi. Those things are real. It's a matter of getting out of your head and getting into your heart and listening more to your heart and saying, okay, through my heart, could this really be my loved one? And the answer usually is yes. Now, sometimes, as John Holland says, I love this, sometimes a rock is a rock. So sometimes, a bird flies by, it's a bird flying by. It's not really a sign. So, I don't want to discourage people from looking or saying, oh, that's just a bird. But there will be some unusual behavior or something out of the ordinary when they use animals, or like, for me, the dragonflies or birds. It's going to be something unusual where you go, that wasn't usual behavior, or that's odd. That is your loved one.
Okay. Now, this next one I'm going to ask is one that I'm quite sure, being a Catholic, you're bound to run into, and I really think it needs to be asked because there's many people that might be listening that's learning about this mediumship that might run into the same question and could use the insight. But I was going to ask you, how do you know your son is, or, there are going to be people that's going to ask you this, in other words, how do you know your son is not under the influence of evil spirits from beyond, leading him, and by proxy, you astray from God's chosen path?
Absolutely. And I totally get that question because, again, I was thinking the same thing in the beginning. And there is the reason that I know is I do deal now with what I call the lower vibrations, which is the earthbound energies, spirits, and things like that. They are very real. I don't give them any power. I try to help them. But there's this certain energy about them. They just feel like people out of bodies. Whereas my son and most people's loved ones, they have this airiness about them. It's a higher vibration, and it feels good. It's a feel good. And I did get tested. I have some very, I work with some very high guides, and I did get tested early on so that I could determine who I'm talking to. And there were times where I was talking to JT, and something else came in, and I needed to identify it and then remove it. And so I know the difference now between, what I would call the higher vibes and the lower vibes. And that's part of the training in the book too, is, identifying who are you talking to, and the lower vibrations cannot emulate high vibrations. The lower, the earthbounds and those who would be considered in the Catholic religion, those, I don't like to use the term evil because that again is a subjective thing. But those darker energies, they just don't feel good, and they cannot emulate the higher vibrations if you know what you're doing, if you can tell the difference and if you've trained to tell the difference. And that is an emphasis that I have on my training because I want people to feel safe. I want them to know who they're talking to. And you know it when it's your child. You know it. You know that's your child that you're talking to because there's this incredible bond between parents and children and anybody else. If you're very close to your mom, you're going to know it's your mom. And there's this, just this this feeling and this vibration that those who have basically crossed over, they have, which the lower, darker energies don't.
Okay. Now, also in the book, you talk about being torn between emotions of, although not being suicidal, not caring if you lived, even though you had husband and children to live for, still. Can you explain what this experience is like, if not too painful for you to, explain
Yes.
it? And how you emerged on this side, with the living in the end. How did you get through these feelings?
Right, and it's very critical because I have talked to enough bereaved parents that I know that we all go through this. All bereaved parents at one point or another. In fact, I was just talking to somebody the other day, and she said, it's been a long time since I've had that I'm going to run myself off the cliff. But that's how I felt yesterday. That's what she said. Because there are times where you just, losing a child, again, it's such an unnatural thing, and it sends you into this major pit of grief. Now, there are things that you do in that pit, and everybody's experience is different. And I have to say that I was very cognitive when I was in the pit, and possibly other bereaved parents aren't. I'm on groups with 14,000 other grieving moms, and we all go through this. So basically, what I said in the book is you have to be there. You have to be in that pit. You have to and acknowledge that, yeah, I want to kill myself. I know I'm not going to, but I certainly wouldn't care if I got taken out right now, because there is life here without your child seems totally unbelievable and unrealistic. So when you're in that pit, you have to stay there, the pit of grief. And I found that just acquiescing to it, just surrendering to it was the only way to raise back out of it. And that's what I encourage people to do. There's a difference, though, in surrendering and giving up. I never gave up, but I did surrender. I knew that at some point, although you don't know if you're going to get out, because that's how it feels. It feels like it's going to swallow you up. You don't know if you're going to get out. But intrinsically, I knew that at some point I would be raised up out of this pit, and you just wait. And so a lot of people, they do go on antidepressants because it is too difficult for them, and they are afraid of hurting themselves. And I would say to those people that absolutely, do what you need to do, but also take a look at, can you manage this without the antidepressants, because it does alter your experience, especially if you're trying to contact your child. So I hope that answered that question.
Okay. And, I've had people come on my show before and talk about the fact that alcohol and, medicines, or at least, mood-altering medicines, hallucinogenics or psychotropics or whatever, they tend to, negate spiritual contact, in other words.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, basically what they do is, with the antidepressants, they actually change the brain chemistry, so that they, to a point where there's like more blocks, and it's harder to receive from the other dimensions, basically. So but of course, if you need it, if that's what's going to be the difference between you living and you taking yourself out, then definitely take the antidepressants. Just make sure that you don't take them, try not to take them for too long a period. And it's not good for avoiding grief, because the grief will come back and smack you. But if you have to, then do it. But it will change your experience with connection.
Now, in your book, you talk about the many ways our loved ones try to contact us on the other side. Can you please share a few examples with us?
Definitely. They're very numerous, and it really does depend on everybody else. I have a dear friend whose son passed, and there's a certain car that she sees. And it's usually the same color, and it's unusual. It's an unusual car. And so she sees that, and she says, that's a sign from her son. Now everybody else would go, my God, it's a car. What are you thinking? But she knows that, because it comes when she really needs it. That's the other piece. They are right there with us, and they're not going to let us flail. So they do bring those things to us. So when she's having a really bad day and just feeling like she can't cope, she'll see this red car that her son drove. And it's a reminder to her, hey, that's my son, and he's doing okay. And that's the biggest thing that they want us to know, and that's why they give us those signs, is to let us know that they are okay. With JT, it was, he really worked very hard. He moved things around in his room, literally, and it wasn't anything that he was 3 at the time, now 8. He couldn't reach these cars that JT was moving around, and nobody else was in there. And I tried to. I'm a paranormal investigator also, so I debunk things as well. Again, critical mind, the left brain thinking. So I was banging on the wall and, running up and down the stairs trying to get these cars to move, and they would not move. So those kinds of things where you left your keys there, you walk away and you're looking for your keys, you come back and they're there. That's definitely your loved one letting you know that they're around. Songs are really, really big. They also play with electronics a lot, flickering lights and computers, turning TVs on and off. I have had bereaved parents tell me that their child called them from their cell phone, from the child's cell phone. The name popped up on their cell phone, and that service had been disconnected. So they do those. I mean, that's pretty blatant, right? That's pretty amazing. And I thought, oh, you're just making up. But I know these people. These are people who I know, and so they're credible sources. They're not going to make this stuff up. And that's the thing. If you're outside of this world and you're just listening to me on the radio, you're probably, oh, she's making it up. But if you know somebody who that's happened to, and you look at that person and you say, wow, I don't think they're crazy. Yesterday they were perfectly sane, so why would they be crazy now? That to me is credible.
Instant Alzheimer's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. And I've seen, there were bumper stickers on people's cars that are messages from children. I'm trying to think of other ones. Of course, birds are huge, and dragonflies and butterflies and things like that. But the more, and things in the sky too. In the book, I write about the first thing that my husband got, and that was a portrait of his son in the clouds. And I missed it because I was in the house, and he wasn't making it up. I know that because I see it all the time now. I look in the clouds, I go, wow, that's a really neat, hearts in the clouds, or like geese. We have geese flying through, and they'll make shapes too. So watching for those kinds of things. It really is, it could be specific to the child, or it could be in nature doing it, but I firmly believe that, most of those are signs from our children. Again, there's always that, those pieces where, well, yeah, that's just a flock of birds flying by. but for the most part, it is signs, I believe.
Need to kind of learn to trust your instincts.
What was that?
I said you need to learn to kind of trust your instincts when you're...
Yes, exactly. Right, because if you see the sign and you think of your loved one, that's the key. Because usually that's what happens. They will put the thought into your head, and you'll see the sign, or you'll see the sign and they'll put the thought into your head. And it is them doing that. They're plopping the idea in your head. Oh, that could be from, my mother, or that could be from so-and-so. The other clair, which I don't talk a lot about, and a clair is how we receive information from spirit and from those in heaven, is smell. Lots of people smell their loved ones. I have a dear friend whose grandfather smoked very heavily. So when he's around, she smells cigarette smoke. Nobody else in the house smokes. There's not anybody smoking outside. It is in a particular area in her house, and it smells like smoke. And she finally figured out it was her grandfather. So, okay. Perfume and flowers and aftershave and things like that, those are also ways that our loved ones let us know that they're
even smelly socks.
Smelly socks, that's right. I'll tell you, I was trying to find that darn pair of dirty underwear for months. And it was just crazy. And for those who don't know, what he's talking about is my son would give me the smell of his dirty laundry to let me know he was close. And I just thought that I missed some of his dirty laundry when it all got washed right after he left. And talking to a medium, my first, very, very first conversation with a medium, I'd never done that before, and she said, I'm smelling dirty socks. And I said, oh my gosh, that is him. That's what it was. It was him letting me know, and he still does that. It's really cute.
Yeah, I couldn't resist it when you were talking about the smells. You just sniffed at me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the more unusual smells that loved ones bring.
Whatever works is what I was always taught.
Absolutely. That's how, I would always get on him about putting his underwear in the hamper or something, and so that was his jokingly way of letting me know that he was here.
Okay. Now, I was also going to mention in your book, you say that if a child dies, they had to leave. Can you elaborate on that?
This is excuse me, a very interesting concept. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just thought maybe I was contagious.
No, yeah. I'm just sorry. I took a gulp of water and it went down the wrong way.
Oh, okay.
So any child who leaves, I know this to be the truth. They had to go. Things are not random on our planet, even though they might appear to be random. I've learned so much since JT left about how things operate here and all of that. But for somebody who has just lost a child, it is very difficult to understand that concept that they had to go, because they're saying, why? Why would they need to go? Why would they need to leave? It was a few days after JT left. I can't even remember the actual date, but I knew somebody had the answer. And again, this is in my book too, and that's where you referenced it. And I was going up and down my phone list, and it stopped on a lady's name, and I said, she has my answer, and I had no idea where that information was coming from. Again, I want to let listeners know, I did not know I was psychic or could talk to JT or anybody else until after JT left. He's the one that brought that gift to me. So I called that person and I just said, why? And she said, well, it's funny that you asked that, because JT visited me last night and get a piece of paper and a pen. He has some messages for you. And so the messages were basically that I was the perfect mom and that I did everything that I needed to do. And the other message was that he had to go. He tried twice before to leave, but he couldn't leave me at that time, but this time he had to go. And I thought about it, and I thought, oh my gosh, I remember those 2 times where he was really sick, because JT left by the flu. People usually don't die from the flu. Kids don't die from the flu. They usually just kind of get over it. And it was one of those things where he died from the flu. And the other time was where he got this parasite in his throat, and his throat was swelling up. And then one other time was when he got croup really bad, and he was actually hospitalized. And so looking back on that, I thought, oh my gosh, and it made sense to me. Not the part that he had to go, but it made sense when he said, I tried twice before to go. So it led me to start investigating. What is this about? What is this I had to go bit about? Because it's a very foreign concept to me. And that's what led me to the Life Between Lives regression that I did with Linda Backman. She's just in Erie, Colorado, very close to where I live. And what that is, it's basically it's a regression, kind of like a past life regression. In fact, you do past life regression when you're with her. And then she takes you to the in-between life state, where it's before you come into the body, and you're talking to the soul family, which are the people who are going to be, or the energies that are going to come in as your family. And you're talking about what kind of plan you're going to have for this lifetime and what you want to learn. And that just blew me away when I was reading the books on Michael Newton, PhD, wrote these books about his encounters. He's a psychotherapist, and he started doing regressions, and he found that there was this in-between life state. So kind of like Brian Weiss, a clinical therapist and a psychologist, and finding that these people were going to not only being regressed back to childhood or in utero, but they were going to other lifetimes, and and other places. Now, I know this is kind of a crazy concept. It was very, very foreign to me, I'll tell you. But having experienced it, I saw where we said, JT was going to leave. And I'm saying that to a parent who's lost a child, though. I don't do that because, I hope that they read the book and they understand it from my perspective. But it's a really difficult concept to think that your child had to go, rather than thinking, some people, for me, it gave me a sense of order and that it wasn't random. I knew it wasn't random. For others, it might be a little bit more traumatic for them to think, well, why would the child leave me? Why did they have to leave? So there's a whole other thing. We could go, another hour on.
Oh, I'm quite sure.
On that concept. I know, because it really is. I mean, it's one of those things where when I was reading that book, it made so much sense to me. But at the same time, I'm thinking this is out of this world.
Okay.
Definitely.
If you don't mind, I'd like to jump ahead of the list a little bit at this point because I was reading your book right before calling you to start the show, and one question popped up that I don't want to wait till later, further down the road to ask, so I want to squeeze it in now while there's still a few minutes left to the show. It has to do with this making life plans in between. You were describing when you were sitting there watching yourself make this life plan and how you had agreed to your son's death before your life here started now. The thing was, you never gave the reason why you agreed to his death, and I thought this might be something that would be enlightening to some people.
There are, for every child that leaves, there is a different reason why they have agreed to it. For JT leaving, it was so that I could learn who I was and help others. It's about bringing light basically to this group of people, this group of parents who have lost their children, and there's a lot of us doing it. There's a lot of mediums out there, who are connecting people to their kids. But I've experienced it. I've experienced it firsthand what losing a child feels like, and can talk to a bereaved parent from that perspective. As opposed to not, and I shouldn't say that if somebody has lost a child, they can't give a reading, because that's absolutely not true. But I have a compassion that adds to it, and that's what was really needed and I was a normal, quote unquote, normal person before this happened. A housewife, homeschooling, and I was basically your average person, and then this tragedy happens. And I gained these gifts, and I'm sure I had them all along, but they certainly were not in my awareness. And so I can talk to other quote unquote normal people, and come from their perspective and say, I was in your shoes, I am in your shoes, and your child really is there, or your loved one really is there. I don't, I dress normally. I don't have a neon sign outside my door, or in my window at home, saying that I'm a psychic. I'm pretty. If you met me on the street, you'd know there's a normal person walking by. Well, I keep putting that in quotes because I would say I'm not really a normal person, because what is that, right? Are you normal, Royce?
Well, how about I'll just say in my opinion.
You know what I mean. And,
yeah, I know. I had to have a little bit of fun.
Yes, absolutely. So what needed to happen, and this is, I guess, what we decided as a family before we all came in, what needed to happen was somebody who could reach those people, reach those parents, and reach other people to help them get connected, who's been in their shoes. That's really what it was about. There's so many other reasons. I mean, there's reasons for my children, why their brother left, reasons for my husband, and some of this stuff we might never know until we go back home. But for me, I know part of it anyway was so that I could come from my experience of living through it. And again, hence writing the book, I have lived through the experience and helping a lot of other people and understanding. you know as well as I do this, that we're coming, this is a very new energy on the planet that's happening right now, and there's more people who need to know that there is something more than this, than what we're just experiencing here, that there is a power greater than ourselves, and that there is order in the chaos, let's say.
Well,
and so more of us are coming out, so to speak, and teaching.
Well, yeah, because the church
has been telling
church has been telling everybody for millennia that there is something in the afterlife and that there is a heaven, there is a hell, etc. But they've done little to make it a reality. In other words,
right? And I think they just didn't know how, without stepping into this kind of world, right?
And of course,
there's a fine line.
Step into that world.
Right. Yeah. I can imagine I know plenty of pastors who receive from God. They really do. But if they said that they received from, somebody's loved one, then the congregation would kind of look at them funny. And so there's a fine line that they need to walk. And, and I totally understand that and appreciate that.
Right. Well, I wanted to ask you that particular question I did about JT, because there are so many people, and pardon me on that, Kaufman, that, they'll hear this here said, and they'll say, well, she must be crazy. Nobody's going to sit there and make a contract, even if there is a realm in between lives where they're going to want their kids to die, or they're going to agree to their kids to die, or their husband to die, or them to have cancer, right. And it seems like, nobody's mad. Are they mad in the spirit world? They're doing this. So, it kind of, the concept, I think, is kind of mind-boggling for some.
Yes.
But for me, I think it's really a matter of looking at the bigger picture. Like, for example, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one or the few.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to get that one out before this show ended, because I think it really needed to be covered.
Yes.
Now, in your book, when you were saying now, and I've asked this question already, but I'm going back to it, so I'm rereading the first one and then going to give you the second one, because it was a two-part question. In your book, you were saying if a child dies, they had to leave. Can you elaborate on that, which you already answered? But the next question was going to be, is it different for an adult?
You mean if an adult leaves an adult child, or just or no, it's not. If anybody leaves, then it was. So here's what I have learned, and this is also kind of a crazy concept, but I think a lot of people will be able to kind of relate to it if they look back on, let's say they have a loved one who left, and they look back on things. We have at least 3 times in our lives when we can leave, when we can, and it's not our conscious decision, of course, it's kind of our higher selves. And I believe I talk a little bit about this in the book, that we're not all here. We're not 100% here. There's still part of us that's in spirit. And that is that is part of the decision making of when to leave. It is from that higher perspective. So if you look back on somebody's life, you can say, like for me, I know I had an exit, when I was 35. I was pregnant with JT. My blood pressure went skyrocketing, and I could have had preeclampsia and, uterus separation, and I could have died. That didn't happen, but I know that was an exit for me. And so you look back on your life and you go, okay, well, how many times did I experience this? And so for anybody who leaves, and especially if it's, the hardest part is when there's a tragic accident, like, let's say, a car accident or something along those lines, and you look at that and you go, well, how could that have been planned? Well, it was. And as hard as that is to understand, I would highly recommend reading some of Michael Newton's books if you have time to do that, for anybody who's listening, because it puts it in a better perspective there than what we can do, here on this show. But, and it could be that person missed an exit before, from something else, like an illness. They didn't leave, but now it's time for them to go, like JT chose the flu. But now it's time for them to leave. And so for anybody who leaves, and especially if it's the hardest part is when there's a tragic accident, like, let's say, a car accident or something along those lines, and you look at that and you go, well, how could that have been planned? Well, it was. And as hard as that is to understand, I would highly recommend reading some of Michael Newton's books if you have time to do that, for anybody who's listening, because it puts it in a better perspective there than what we can do, here on this show. But, and it could be that person missed an exit before, from something else, like an illness. They didn't leave, but now it's time for them to go, like JT chose the flu. well, this other energy chose, or this other spirit chose an accident. And there's so many levels that go into it, and I really, being here in the third dimension, I don't understand all the levels, and I'm not supposed to. But I do know from the higher perspective that there's always purpose, and things are not random. That's what I know.
Yeah, a lot of people, even people in the church, believe there is no such thing as coincidence, and it's really more about synchronicity than it is coincidence.
Yes. I agree with that, definitely.
Well, we got showing about 10 minutes left, and I didn't get to quite all the questions I had, which is still quite okay, because I told you at the beginning of the show that I probably had more than we could squeeze anyway, you know what I mean? And I wanted to have time to, ask you, or like your groups you say you got for these mothers that lost their child. Is this a Yahoo group? Do you have a link to it on your site, or?
I do. There is a Yahoo group. The one that has about 14,000 actually is a Facebook group. And I'm not sure if it's open still, but it's called Grieving Mothers. It's not my group. It belongs to somebody else. But it's very good especially for new bereaved people, new bereaved moms, because there's so much support on there for those for that initial time. And of course after too, but it's critical. I immediately, as soon as JT left, I knew that I needed help. And, so I immediately got onto a Yahoo group and, got that help. And now the Yahoo group that I'm part of, I do have a link on it from my website, but I'll give it to everybody right now. It's called Afterlife Eternal. And, what's unique about this group is it's not just for parents, it's for anybody who has lost somebody, and it supports the belief of the afterlife. And that is a huge difference from some of these other groups. I was on one group initially, and it had too many Christian overtones for me. They didn't support the afterlife stuff that I was doing, and so it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for more of the Christian perspective, then absolutely seek that out. If you're looking for a group that supports that you can communicate with your child, and they do give you messages and things like that, and there's actually a lot of mediums on the group, on the Afterlife Eternal group. We don't do readings on there at all, but we do support each other through the loss, and that's a phenomenal group. I'm trying to think of the other support groups that I would recommend. Of course, I have a Facebook page for Bridge to Healing, and for the book, a Bridge to Healing, JT's story, and I provide a lot of support on the Bridge to Healing page. And so, if anybody's looking for kind of I try to post something on there to awaken your senses so that you can connect with your loved ones. And then I would say, just be wary to put out there what you want from the group. Do you just want support for your grief, or do you want somebody to support you for connecting with your loved one? It really depends on your intention on which group you go to.
Okay. Now I was let's see. I just had a thought on my mind. I'll be doggone if my brain didn't fart. I don't usually have that happen.
Well, you were so intent on my words.
I think I probably was. Plus, I have Claire Pappin on the Skype Instant Messenger, and I was praising you to her.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
You kind of caught me. I'm busted. But yeah, now I was going to mention one more time that your website is www.sarinabaptista.com, and you can go there and learn a little bit more about her and her books. Well, actually, she's only got one book so far. Yeah, I did say so far, because I think you'll be working on a follow-up book. I think you mentioned it in your book already. And also, you can scroll down on the description here, and there's a link to her book over at Amazon, as well as I think there's also a link at her website where you can purchase the book. And granted, tomorrow, the next day, I'll be moving this to the archives to make room on the front page for my next show, but it will still be in the archives from now on for anybody that wants to listen to the show, read the description, They like it. They have access to the book. I make all that available for everybody.
Thank you so very much.
Now, I also wanted to ask you, do you have any other events coming up?
I have a lot of events coming up. Most of them are in northern Colorado. However, I am looking at doing more training online and webinars and things like that. But if you're local in northern Colorado, I have a book signing at Barnes & Noble at Centera next Saturday at 1 o'clock. And then the following Friday, which I think is really funny, it's Friday the 13th, I have a book signing at Anthology Book Company. And that is at 6:30 p.m. or 6 p.m. It's on my website. I will double check that. And the big event that I am starting, I'm doing a once a month training now. It's half training, half connecting, and there is a book signing there too. And it's in Fort Collins, Colorado at the Bob Lou Theater on July 17th. Starts at 6:30. What I do is I talk an hour about some training. This month we're talking about how we receive information, and then I connect with the audience. I connect their loved ones. So I do a gallery-style reading with the audience, which is kind of like the John Edwards style, where the messages come through. Your loved ones get to decide who gets the messages, and I will give messages to audience members, and then there'll be a book signing after that. And that will be a monthly event, and I'm going to get the schedule probably tomorrow on for August, September, etc. But it'll be at Bob Lou in Fort Collins. And then other events, again, keep tabs on my website because I keep that up to date. And anything that pops up for other areas, I will put on there, or any events for webinars and things like that. But I do feel that there is a follow-up that's necessary for those who have read the book and who want to kind of take it to the next level. We'll do that online. We'll do that through either, Skype or something along those lines so they can really sense that they're getting somewhere. Okay.
Now also, Claire herself has popped in a question for you. I want to try to squeeze this in real quick. Does JT have a message for people about the changes that humanity is going through?
Yes, especially, here in northern Colorado, or actually the state of Colorado, was pretty much on fire. And what I kept hearing, and I asked about it immediately, and what I kept hearing from JT is that there's a rebirth that is required for all of the earth, and this is going to happen through these events. And what we need to be aware of is to have awareness that it's not, it's not going to be the end of the world, but things do need to change. Energy does need to move, and we do need to change. And so lots of rebirth. And, I have such a hard time telling somebody whose house just burned down, well, it was just a rebirth for you, that just seems very trite. But I want to tell those people who have been affected by the fires that there is purpose, even though that might sound also trite and to them at this point, but there is purpose, and they will learn what that is, just as I learned what the purpose was for JT leaving. I have high hopes that other people will learn the purpose for these earth changes that are going on, and it's mainly to wake us up, and to be observant of the world around us.
Okay, so is it in no way connected with the 2012 of the Mayas, or is it?
Yes, well, it is because, absolutely, because the Earth changes are, it's going to be global things, but it depends on who you talk to what the interpretation is of the 2012 stuff. And I am more of a proponent of the Greg Braden outlook on the 2012 issue, where it's not going to be the end of the world, but we do need to make some changes, and the Earth will go through some changes as well.
Okay. Well, we got 1 minute remaining. It looks like we're going to override a minute or two, but since you did say that, I'd like to throw in this real quick light that I read a news article about 2 weeks ago where they had actually found some more Mayan text or clay tablets, whatever they are on, that show that they really hadn't planned the end of the world at 2012, that they had calendars showing that extending a little bit further, that it just didn't get finished and with the rest of it yet.
Right, before they were removed, right? Well, if you look, and I encourage everybody who is concerned about 2012 to look at Greg Braden's site. It's GregGbraden, so it's 2 G's in his name. He has done extensive work, and he's actually going to be, at the Mayan temples when, on December 21st of this year. He has a trip there. And what he has learned and what I adhere to also is that it is the beginning of another phase, that we're ending a phase and we're beginning something new. And that something new is yet to be seen, and I believe it still is in motion. I don't believe anything is set in stone at this point. That's not how the world operates. But I would absolutely encourage everybody to look at Greg Braden's stuff and see if it resonates with you, because it really resonated with me.
Right, and I've been to his website. He's got some interesting material on there.
Definitely.
In the meantime, I want to remind everybody out there to have a happy and enjoyable 4th of July weekend. If anybody's going to be out there drinking, don't forget to take somebody with you, a designated driver. I know I certainly used to enjoy my beer while I barbecued, and me personally, I did it at home, where I wouldn't do nothing worse than fall out of bed, but, we don't want anybody getting hurt. We want them able to return to the show. And Sarina, I've really enjoyed talking to you. You're a fantastic guest, and I hope to be able to have you back further down the road at one of the earliest openings I got.
Royce, that would be wonderful, and thank you so much for opening your show to me and my book, my new baby. So thank you so very much.
Well, I definitely want to thank you, and it's been a pleasure. And you enjoy your weekend, and I'll be in touch with the links to the archived versions of the different places.
Great. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. You have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, everybody, real quick, before we go, let me give you a brief rundown on my next show, which is scheduled, I had it in front of me a minute ago, and here it is right here, July the 3rd with Scott Roberts. That show may or may not take place. I don't show it as being confirmed. I just show it as being on the schedule, so I might have dropped the ball on that one on my end. If not, I may just try to do a lone wolf show where I just post a few views of my own. Maybe give y'all a few updates and news if I can find it and what have you. Other than that, the next show would be July the 7th, which is a Saturday, with John Myler. But here's hoping that we'll be able to do the one with Scott Roberts. I also want to remind everybody that not only is this the 4th of July weekend, but it's also World UFO Day, July the 2nd, which is Monday. And if y'all want to know a little bit more about that, click on the World UFO Today logo in the upper right-hand side of the site, to the right of the player. You can also scroll down to the Friends link and pay a visit to some of my friends, which, to be honest with you, right now, the alien UFO community is down, and it's been down for some time. However, supernaturalufo.com is a forum. I got a link to that there, and they're open and running. And United Paranormal International is still up and running. And I recommend these, sites to anybody. And if you get a chance, click on my radio favorites in the menu on the left. And you can always visit UKPN Radio with Gary Brown, JimHarold.com. Jim Harold's the host. Gralien Report with my good friend Micah Hanks. And Ohio Exopolitics Radio with Mark Snyder. These are all people I know. I've even had 3 of them on my show, and I would really recommend them to anybody. And I hope you guys enjoy it. And I'm going to go ahead and cut everybody loose and get to my weekend barbecue. And I hope everybody enjoys the holiday. Y'all take care now, and don't forget, I also want to thank y'all for coming. I couldn't have a show without my listeners as well as my guests. So enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you later.
Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man, and joining me today is Sarina Baptista. And we have a rather unusual occurrence today. I'm actually getting a phone call during my introduction, which I don't usually get. And Sarina, I think I'm going to go ahead and take this one because I just got a hunch that you'd probably want me to. Okay, now, caller, you're on the air. Well, now it's ringing. That's unusual.
Hello?
Hello, this is Royce, the Redneck Radio Man at Paranormal Palace Radio. I think you were just calling my show, and it evidently, I think it disconnected before I got to you to answer it, and then what it done was it just redialed you.
Oh, yeah, I did. I thought, because I know one of the persons who's on, she emailed me. Sarina?
Right, that's my guest today.
Yeah, so I thought it's starting at 2 o'clock Eastern time.
Oh, no, that's, it's 1 o'clock.
Yeah, process of grieving. But then, as I got more into my process, and it was only about 4 months, when I realized that JT was still so close to us, so present in the house, I couldn't believe it. And through twists and turns and different things that he led me to, I found that I could communicate with him and others. And that's the back part of the book is how I discovered my gifts, being a psychic medium, and now I train psychic mediums and those who want to connect with their children and loved ones. And then the back of the book is the training section where I put in exercises and things like that help people to get connected with their loved ones.
Right.
So I can't wait to hear your, I know you're partway through it, and can't wait to hear your feedback on that, since you've been in this industry for a while.
Well, yeah, and you're not the first medium that I have had on this, and there have been others who we've talked about part of your book that you got in there about the life between life thing where people, choose who their family member is going to be during this incarnation and, other things of that nature. So, not sure how many questions I did get on that one, but let's start this up at the beginning. And if I ask a question that seems a little rough, please overlook it because I tried to pick some questions that I knew might be a little rough, but that I figured that people would be asking you anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Hey, Sarah.
This is Sarah you wrote about in your book?
What?
Is this David, Sarah?
Yes, it's David, Sarah.
Hi. How are you? Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, well, I think it was 2 o'clock our time because I thought it was like, I don't know, I always forget if it's 2 or 3 hours ahead, but anyways, I can't seem to really get on to hear it without being on the phone with you. So, I guess, I don't see anything here that allows me to, even to go on as a guest. So, all right, so I'll just leave it, that's all, and
okay, well, Sarah?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but before you get out of here, I was going to say, if you're using Internet Explorer, if you refresh your page, a pop-up menu ought to show up that asks you if you want to enable ActiveX, and if you enable it, you should see the player and the arrow on it.
Yeah, I know it did before, but now I don't see it. Okay, I'll see what happens if I try it again.
You can also try it in other browsers, and some of them will give you a dialogue asking you if you want to download it and install it, and sometimes for some people it's easier that way.
Yeah, I didn't download it before, and now it's gone. It doesn't ask me anymore. So, because I didn't really know what it was, I didn't realize you have to have that. Okay, well, I'll see what I can do. Thank you anyways.
Okay, then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Sarah. Bye, Sarah.
Well, that is one of the things about doing a live radio show on the Internet is sometimes technology is just not as, cut and dry for everybody. As Central Standard Time, I'm not
2 o'clock Eastern.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
Eastern is kind of strange. It depends really on how far east you are because, like, Tennessee or I think it's Florida is 1 hour ahead of us, and I think it's Tennessee is 2 hours ahead of us. So it depends exactly where at in the East you are in relation to me.
Oh, I'm in New York. Is it on now or no?
Yes, it is on right now.
Oh, it is
You
on
are
right
live.
now.
Yeah, you're live on the air with me and her as we speak.
Oh, okay, because I was trying to get on the computer, but I'm on the screen, but it wouldn't let me go in as a guest or anything. So, is there any way for me to listen, or what time are you finishing, or are you finished?
No, we're not finished. We're just now starting, in fact. And
Okay.
you don't see the player on the webpage?
Yeah, but all it has is an X in the middle. That's it. And it's
Okay,
not.
that's because you need a plug-in. It's a Windows Media Player, and it requires ActiveX to be installed or enabled.
That's why.
And are you using Internet Explorer?
Yeah, I think it's on the, well, whatever. Yeah, it was, but, yeah, right now it doesn't have the icon. It had before to install, but now I didn't know that I have to install something. Okay, I don't know. What?
But what is your name?
I'm sorry?
She asked what your name was.
I don't hear what you're saying.
This is Sarina. What is your name?
Oh, hi, I'm Sarah.
Hi.
You'd like it to be.
Yes, absolutely.
So I hope that she manages to get this here ActiveX, enabled and up and running so she can get in. Didn't get a chance to tell her that she has to have a free membership to get into the chat room, though.
Well, yeah, and her son is actually one of my angels in the book, and I met her online in one of the online support groups for grieving parents, and so it's just wonderful to have those people really wanting to connect with their children, and that's what the book is about.
Right, and in fact, I took a bunch of questions, to be honest with you, while I was reading it, that I have serious doubts we're going to have time to get to today. But I was going to say it's either September, October is when my next opening is. I know that's a ways down the road, but I stayed booked a couple, 3 months in advance. I was going to say we're not able to cover everything today. If you feel like coming back, we can always reschedule the rest of it, and that way I have a chance to finish reading the book and get more questions.
That would be great. That would be awesome.
And
yeah, my main thing is, of course, the Bridge to Healing JT story is about, my journey when JT, my 7-year-old son, left. He passed from the flu, as you know from reading the book.
Right.
And it just drew us into the whole family into this whole other world. And I've met so many beautiful people in that world who are suffering,
yes.
The loss of their children as well. And so I wanted to write kind of as honoring them and the whole process